I feel like I've still got breakfast on my face. Which I don't. It's okay. I don't have a beverage. I've started now. I'll have a beverage afterwards. Aw, man. I don't know what to do with my hands. Hello everybody and welcome to Inside number 23, my podcast about knitting and sewing and my crafty life in general. I am so happy that you're here. My name is Katie and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry and Periscope and generally all the things as Miss Lavelli. And as always, I am podcasting from Hertfordshire, which is just north of London in the UK, where I live with my lovely husband Emrys and our gorgeous little puppy Rolly. And we also have a Ravelry group for the podcast. I'm determined not to forget to mention it this week, which you can find just by searching Inside number 23 podcast in the groups tab on Ravelry. And you should definitely join because it is full of amazing, lovely people, with lots of fun things to get involved with, so do head along and join. It's also where I post my show notes for this podcast, although I was very, very naughty last week and I've only just today uploaded the show notes from last week, but I promise this week I will be more prompt, so yay for show notes! So today is Sunday the 19th of June and I want to start off by saying that it's actually Father's Day and I want to send a huge amount of love to my dad, and he does actually watch the podcast, can you believe that? Has no interest in sewing or knitting whatsoever, but as he has been in every aspect of my life with everything that I do, he loves to get involved, so he does watch, and I love you so much and I can't wait to spend some time with you later, and you're amazing. I can't imagine having a better dad in my life, so yay. And so happy Father's Day to everybody, all the dads out there doing awesome jobs for your kids. You're fantastic, so yay Father's Day. So let's be honest and real for just a minute. It's been a pretty sucky week because of a lot of horrendous things that have been happening. That has meant that this week's been very difficult, very hard. I mean, that's an understatement for a lot of people. It is something I would like to talk about a little bit later in my general waffle segment, so bear that in mind. Things are a little bit more serious than they usually are at the end of the podcast this week. But yeah, I would have felt weird if I hadn't said something. It wouldn't have felt like I was being honest with you if I didn't talk about it just a little bit. In terms of what's been going on actually inside number 23 this week, it's been a little bit of a peculiar week, mostly because Emrys, my lovely, gorgeous, wonderful husband, has been performing in the complete works of Shakespeare Abridged, which was fantastic. I went and saw it twice. I enjoyed it so much. It was so much fun. But it's been a little bit of a culture shock, to be honest, because Emrys has basically been living the life that we both used to live when we first met. Obviously, when we first met, we were both working in theatre full-time, and with that kind of a lifestyle, you do the main body of your work in the evenings and then your days are free. It's kind of the reverse of what normal people do with their lives, and that was really bizarre because I was still obviously working my day job as I do. I did take a little bit of time off to be able to spend some time with him, which was great, but having my husband go out to work in the evenings and me needing to get up for work in the morning was a little bit odd because it felt like we didn't really get to see a huge amount of each other, which was a little bit sad. But it also just really reminded me of the lifestyle that I used to have, that I had for such a long time before I stopped performing. And it was a little bit bittersweet, if I'm perfectly honest. It felt a little bit peculiar to get a little glimpse back into that way of life in a really nice way, and also a little bit like, oh, I remember being that person, and that person does feel like a lifetime ago. But moving swiftly on to some lovely bits and pieces, I have a lot of stuff to share with you this week. But I would say I was expecting to be able to get a lot more kind of sewing and stuff done this week, but with Emrys and I having such kind of conflicting schedules and wanting to see as much of him as possible, I do feel that my crafting has been a little bit all over the show. I've been picking things up and putting things down and not really being able to focus for long periods of time on one particular project, which is fine for certain things. It's not so great for sewing. I really wanted to have a lot of sewing to share with you this week, but once again, not a huge amount going on. I do have some stuff in the works to share, but it's not particularly huge and exciting. But yeah, I feel that just kind of trying to take little snatched moments with Emrys and with Rolly and to get the most of our time together. I haven't really been able to focus long periods of time, like I said, on individual projects. So everything feels a little bit all over the place. But to start off with this week, I would like to talk about owl post. Hooty owls. As we all know, I love post the most. Hashtag I love post the most. I absolutely love post. It's one of the happiest times of my day when I get something come through in the post, even if it's something that I was expecting and I ordered. I just love getting post. It will never get old to me. But I wanted to give a little shout out to Gayle. Hello, Gayle. Hi. Gayle, who is gayleywayley on Instagram and various other social medias, and you probably know her because she is very vocal in a lot of different parts of the kind of knitting community. So hello, Gayle. And Gayle actually sent me the loveliest parcel this week. It was so kind, full of treats for me and Emrys and Rolly. She sent these handmade, like homemade doggy treats for Rolly, and he is obsessed with them. They're his favourite thing in the whole world, Gayle, so thank you for that. And she also sent some of, incidentally, Emrys's favourite sweets, which are red vines. He absolutely loves red vines, so he went mental when those came out of the parcel. Sent me some of my favourite passion tazo tea, and also some really cool candy cane tea from, I believe it's from Trader Joe's. I'm not 100% sure, but oh my god, it smells amazing and I'm so excited about it. So Gayle, thank you for your parcel. I would have to say my personal highlight of the parcel was these. Okay, I have never tried Milk Duds in my entire life, and these are incredible. So Gayle basically sent us a little selection of kind of cinema based snacks because she knows, and as a lot of you know from watching this podcast, I'm obsessed with going to the cinema. I absolutely love it. And apparently these and red vines are very commonly available in cinemas in the US as a cinema snack. These are amazing. Oh my goodness, you guys, I'm obsessed. They're pretty much empty. I did eat a lot of these whilst I was watching complete works of Shakespeare with Emrys performing in it. But basically, they're like these little sweeties. They look kind of like minstrels. For people in the UK, they're kind of minstrel shaped. But they're basically like reverse chocolate eclairs because they are kind of caramelly with chocolate on the outside. Oh, and they are so good. It's the only problem with toffee is when you put one in your mouth, you have to chew it all up and it takes forever. I kind of feel like I'm in the Legacy knits now because it's like emergency snack. Still going. Oh. Basically, these are my favourite. I was thinking that I would share them with Emrys, but unashamedly, I've pretty much eaten up every single one of these entirely by myself. So I'm very pleased. And thank you, Gayle, for introducing me to something that I'm really a little bit obsessed with now. When I go to America later this year, I'm going to be stocking up on some Milk Duds and bringing them back with me. But also something I wanted to mention is that Gayle and her friend Charlene actually have an audio podcast, which is called the Yarniacs podcast. It's available on iTunes. You can download it on iTunes. That's where I get most of my audio podcasts from. And I'm so excited to listen because Gayle, you've got like, I think your most recent episode was 116, which is just amazing because it means I can enjoy the entire back catalogue of all of your episodes. So I'm so excited about that. I have a whole load of episodes downloaded onto my phone, which I'm going to be listening to on my way to work in the car over the next couple of days. So I can't wait. And all of you guys should definitely check them out. Just thank you, Gayle. Absolutely made my day. And it was just so kind and generous of you. So thank you. Before we start off with kind of knitting and sewing content and that type of thing, I do want to talk about what I'm wearing, which is going to be a new segment for when I'm actually wearing something that I have made myself, which I think is going to happen a little bit more now that we're getting into slightly warmer months, because a lot of the projects that I have that are kind of handmade clothes and that type of thing are more summer-based items. What I'm wearing today, this is something that I have worn on the podcast before. This is a Butterick pattern, but it's one of the patterns that was designed by Gertie for Butterick. Can't remember the exact number of the pattern, but I'll make sure that I include it somewhere along the bottom here, the number, and I'll obviously put it in the show notes as well. But it is a dress, and if I can just turn around, it has this kind of detailing on the back where it has a kind of collar, if you can see that. These are fabric covered buttons that I've included on there. And it comes with an option for a fitted skirt and a full skirt, and I have put the full skirt one on it. A fun detail on this skirt is I also added horsehair braid, which is this kind of plasticky looking stuff, onto the hem of the skirt. And what that does is it gives the hem more structure and body, which gives you in general, even without like a crinoline or something under the dress, it gives the skirt kind of body and that type of thing. It's a lovely finish. If you can see, it's all sewn in by hand. So you can see these kind of herringbone stitches all along the bottom. That is sewn in by hand. One of my absolute favourite finishes on a dress. I actually made this dress for my birthday a couple of years ago, and something I've talked about on here previously is that I have gained a little weight over the last couple of years. And when I actually first made this dress, because Butterick patterns I find in general a little bit generous with their sizes, this dress was a little too big when I first made it. And now it fits. So I may have gained weight, but it means that something's fitting me better. So yay! It was really fun to make, and the style is obviously gorgeous. You know, anything by Gertie kind of just exudes 1950s style. So I love wearing this dress, and it'll be really fun to wear out to dinner later when we go out for Father's Day. So I think that it's about time that we move on to some knitting, don't you? Because that's obviously why you're all here, right? So it's time for What's on My Needles? I have a finished object for you this week. I bet you can guess what it is. I'm pretty sure you can from how I was going on about it last week. But it is my Void Shawl! Holy cow, guys! Look at it! Amazing, 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 amazing. Without doubt, my favourite pattern that I have used this year. This is, of course, the Void Shawl by Melanie Berg. It's incredible. I want to knit everything by Melanie Berg after knitting this. I must admit, it's not finished, because as you can see, I haven't woven in my ends. I do still have ends that need weaving in, but literally it was blocking. It's been blocking for the last couple of days. I unpinned it this morning because I wanted to show you guys, so I haven't yet woven in those ends. It's still a tiny bit damp. It's worsted weight yarn, and that does take a really long time to dry, but I love it. Oh, it's just divine. Look at it! Oh goodness! I could go on about this shawl forever. Look at that. Oh, the textured pattern. I am completely and utterly infatuated with this shawl, and I'm so happy that I decided to work on it. So obviously the Void Shawl is something that I've been knitting for my own Cal, the Voidalong, that I have been working on with lovely Eric of Sticks Twine. There is still time to get involved with the Voidalong, you guys. We have up until July 17th for you to get this done. So that is plenty of time, believe me, because this just flew off my needles. All you need to do is knit a Void Shawl, and you can then post in both my threads and Eric's threads of Sticks Twine on Ravelry, in our Ravelry groups. I still haven't opened my finished object thread. I'm going to do that this afternoon. So disorganized. I tell you, this week I've just been all over the place. It's really unsettled me. But I was really proud that I managed to get this finished, and oh, It feels like such an achievement, and I know I'm gonna wear it to death. Obviously when it cools down a little bit, because it is finally behaving like it's summer in the UK. This yarn is Quince and Co Lark in the chanterelle colourway. And as I was telling you last week, I actually needed to purchase an additional skein of yarn in order to finish the garter stitch border on here, which I managed to do. However, funny story, I thought that with that extra skein of yarn, I would have more than enough yarn to do the garter border. So by the time I did the total amount of rows that were necessary to get these amount of garter ridges, I thought, I've got this whole extra skein, you know, I should be able to get a couple of extra garter rows on here, definitely, because I bought a whole extra skein. I can definitely get, you know, an extra 2 rows just to use up some of this excess yarn that I'm going to have, right? So I'm knitting away, done the total amount of ridges that are needed, so I decide that I'm going to add an extra 2. I do the first one, and then I'm on the wrong side. I'm about halfway through the wrong side, so I'm doing my final kind of garter ridge, and I look down at the yarn that I've got, and it's this tiny little swirl of yarn that's left, and I was like, I can't believe, for one thing, I can't believe that I'd knitted that far without kind of really assessing how much yarn that I had left over. But I was genuinely surprised that even with the extra skein of yarn, just doing the pattern as was written, I had basically no yarn left over afterwards. I had the tiniest little swirl of worsted yarn, but after doing the I-cord bind off, which I love, by the way, I really needed that extra skein of yarn, otherwise I would have nowhere near been able to get this kind of completely finished and with this lovely thick garter edging on it. But all kind of stresses with yarn aside, I am really glad that I went and in the end purchased that extra skein of yarn, because I feel that this is just perfect. I wouldn't have wanted this border to be any smaller than it is. I'm really happy with it this length, and I think it was worth the investment of buying that extra skein just to be so happy with the finished object, because it's so lovely. I love it. Oh, I love it. Love it. I love it. I could play with it all day. I'm gonna take it off, because otherwise I would just continue to play with it indefinitely. But yeah, mine is now finished. I know that there are quite a lot of other people in my group who have also finished theirs, and it's a really lovely knit that just flies off your needles, honestly. It's not the most intuitive thing that you'll ever work on. We have discussed that kind of before, because you do have to constantly check what you're doing when you're working on this diamond pattern. It is not as simple as it may appear, slightly more complex, but it's worth it. I am going to wear this to death in autumn winter, and I am definitely going to be wearing it to New York in January when I come for Vogue Knitting Live, because I just think on the plane, oh, it would be lovely to wear and cozy, and then I can use it as a blanket or a pillow, and it'll be amazing. Love it. One more thing about the Voidalong, which I promised that I would share with you when I have more information. Last week I said that we are amazingly getting a prize donated by the incredible Hannah of Circus Tonic Handmade, and she's an incredible yarn dyer. Go and check her out anyway. But I have now had the details of what she's going to be donating, and it's the most beautiful yarny goodness in the form of this glorious colourway, which is called the Scarlet Honey Eater colourway, and I'm obsessed with it. It looks amazing. It's this beautiful pinky, almost corally pink, and I love it. It is an 80-20 Australian merino and nylon combination, so it'd be perfect for the most beautiful pair of socks or gloves, or I mean, you could make so many beautiful things with this yarn. I am so happy with it, and Hannah, the more that I get to know her, the more that we message each other, the more I completely adore her. She kind of shared this week that she originally worked as a scientist and gave that up to do what she does now with yarn, and I just think anyone who gives up a job that they've clearly worked hard for and are good at to do something that they just love more than anything else, and they have such passion for. It's so brave and it's so admirable, and I really just admire that on so many levels, and particularly even more so because what she produces is just out of this world incredible. All of her colourways are kind of based on native Australian birds as well, which is so cool because the scarlet honeyeater obviously is based on the bird of the same name. And I love her yarn, you guys. And like I said last week, you need to head on over to her website and you need to just buy all of the things and follow her on Instagram and just love her, because I love her so much and everything that she does. But even more excitingly, in addition to the prize that she's donated, she's also given us a coupon code. So that even if you don't win this beautiful yarn, you could still treat yourself to something from her website, because she's given us a 10% off code, inside 23. So that's a capital I, inside 23. So yes, thank you, Hannah. You made my day with the code, because I need to definitely make a purchase from you. But I just think what you do is amazing, and thank you for your generosity in terms of donating that prize to us. I'm so thankful for everything. Hannah's also working on her own Void Shawl, which is looking amazing. So check out her Instagram, because she shared a little picture of it, and doing really well, Hannah. Can't wait to see when it's finished. And moving on from knit-alongs and finished objects and all of that fun stuff, let's get on with some whips, some whipping action here on the podcast this week. And as I kind of hinted at earlier, I've felt all over the place in terms of my crafting this week. I've kind of been picking things up and putting them down, and then picking up something else and putting that down, and that has meant that this has been a bit of a week of casting on new things. I've literally just been like, I must knit all the things. I must cast on all the things. Yeah, that's going to become pretty obvious in some of the works in progress that I have to share with you this week. So I'm going to start off with some socks. I'm currently spending a lot of time on 2 pairs of socks. I have my little bobbins bag here, and my Eldenwood craft bag here with the little puggies on it. The 2 pairs of socks that I have been spending time on this week are my The Boy Who Lived sock. Which is the zigzagular sock pattern. I really love this. Last week I'd kind of just turned the heel, on this, and had started on the foot. I am now quite confidently working down the foot, and very close to the point where I'll be adding a toe into this. You can see it's quite a sizable little sock. This is a really good kind of just pick it up, put it down project, because I've memorised the pattern now. I don't need to look at the pattern at all, and it's just super easy to just pick up and work on, and really enjoying it. But because my knitting has been so kind of in little increments here and there, I still haven't put the toe in here, which is a little bit sad. I was hoping that I'd have a hoe for you this week, but I don't. But that's the first pair of socks. And then the other sock that I've been working on is my blueberry waffle socks, which are for Emrys, which again, I have popped a heel into, yay! So when I shared this with you last week, I was still working on the leg of the sock. I've now put the heel in, and I'm working on the decreases into the foot. It's not a hugely long leg. Emrys specifically said he didn't want a really long sock. I think he feels more comfortable with them slightly lower down on the ankle, so this is kind of the perfect length for him. Usually with socks I would knit them a little bit longer, but like I said last week, I'm also enjoying a slightly shorter leg on my socks at the moment, so this was really perfect, and it shot off the needles because I wasn't knitting it so much. And this is just a self-striping Regia yarn that I can never remember what it is because I got it such a long time ago. But yeah, 2 pairs of socks that are kind of ticking along, both past the heel now, which basically means that the finishing line is in sight, which is great. But all of the other projects that I have to show you are brand new cast-ons, because I have had cast-on fever this week. Absolute cast-on fever. So the first of my new cast-ons this week is a pattern called Cutie Pugs. And I really don't know what possessed me to cast this on this week, because like I said, it's been getting warmer here, but all I had in my head was the fact that I wanted to work on some colour work and I remembered that I had these mittens that I haven't yet cast on, and I realised that I had the perfect yarn available in my stash, which was this kind of really, really lovely black and white yarn, and this is specifically designed for mittens. And I can't for the life of me remember the exact name of this yarn. I just know that it came in a set for mittens with a pattern all kind of boxed and ready to go. However, I decided that rather than using the pattern that these came with, what I would do is use the yarn and use it for the cutie pug pattern, because as a pug mummy, how could I not have some mittens that were pug themed? So I have done the cuff so far, which is here, and as you can see it has this amazing kind of braided pattern in the cuff, and it also has this really cute kind of bobbly edging which you knit. And the reason that this has pins in it is basically that in order to create this little kind of lacy edging, is it's done with yarn overs. So you knit for a while, as you can see, you knit in stockinette, and then you do in the contrast colour this kind of knit pattern which involves the yarn overs, and when you turn up that little bit of stockinette that you did at the beginning, you get this really cute finish on your cuff. And I have just started doing the colour work, which you can kind of see here, and I'm really enjoying it. I love colour work and stranded knitting and Fair Isle and all of those lovely things, so this has been really enjoyable. In particular, just using the two different colours of yarn has been really satisfying, because usually when I do colour work I have like 100 different colours, so it's been really nice just using black and white for a change. And I'm really excited because these are just going to be so much fun to wear with little pug faces on them. And it was just a fun thing to do in front of the TV whilst Emrys was out doing the show. You know, I just thought, I'm sad and lonely, I'm going to cast on something new and fun and watch a movie. And they actually cast these on whilst watching, for the first time ever, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I'm not necessarily recommending, but as a horror film buff, not having seen that film was a little bit inexcusable, so I did watch it, and I enjoyed parts of it, but if you're not a horror film fan, I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, besides my terrible taste in films, this is a really fun pattern and I'm really enjoying it so far, and hopefully it will grow quite quickly because mittens are relatively small, so the progress should be quite quick, I would hope. And then I can have some puggy mittens, yay! Next cast on was again something that I did in an evening when Emrys was at the theatre and I was feeling sad and lonely. And this was a project that I was talking about last week, and it's the Artichoke Bag by Pam Allen, and the yarn that I'm using is Quince and Co, love Quince and Co, and it's their Sparrow yarn. How cute, by the way, is this, how this kind of came up on my ball winder, because it's like a little donut of yarn. How fun is that? This is the Port colourway. Hello. So it's a bag, linen bag, and I decided that I had to work on this after Eric told me that he was going to be making one, and then obviously I have to do everything that Eric does, so I decided to cast one on as well. And we're doing a sort of mini knit along, just the two of us, and I've put a little dent in it, but I must admit I'm finding it a little bit frustrating. This is how much that I have done so far. Doesn't it look like a hairnet? And I'm a big fan of a hairnet, but this does look like a hairnet. Like, look, I could put it in my hair. Just pop all my hair up in it. It does, it looks like a hairnet right now, but the concept is that you start from the centre bottom of the bag and you knit your way out in garter. And this, look at this, my little stitch marker for the beginning of my round, and this was gifted to me. This is from the Thimble and Thread Make, the little moustache. I love it so much, absolutely love using it. Go to the Thimble and Thread Make, she has incredible stuff in her shop. But it's garter stitch in the round, and so I basically just kind of knit one round and then purl another round, and so that's why I have my little stitch marker. I'm just knitting. I never knit on the podcast. Look at me, guys, I'm knitting. just knitting on the podcast. And this is why I don't knit on the podcast, because I get distracted and completely lose my train of thought, which happens anyway. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about this at the moment, you guys. It's a combination of a few things which is making me feel unhappy with it. One big thing, if I'm honest, is the yarn. I've never knit with linen yarn before, and I'm just not used to the stiffness of it and the fact that it's very unforgiving in terms of things like tension and your stitches. Basically, you can see in the fabric that's been created looks a little uneven to me, which is a little bit annoying. I'm not 100% happy with that, because I feel that my tension is good, but because this is so, like I said, kind of stiff and unyielding, it's not very forgiving with uneven stitches. So even if your stitches are just slightly uneven, it does show. Also, one thing you can see is here and here are the increasing rounds, and they do leave a very different look to the stitches than your regular rounds, which I suppose would be quite a nice design feature, but just with it kind of on my little circular needle here, I'm not 100% thrilled. We'll see. I'm definitely going to complete it because I want the finished object. I want the bag really badly. I think it would be a lovely, lovely thing to have, but I'm not sure if I can see a huge amount of linen projects in my future, just because it's just not a medium that I really feel 100% happy working with. I don't think it's something that I would seek out to work with in the future, but I love the colour. I think the pattern is really, really great. I'm really enjoying reading the pattern. I want the finished object, so I will keep on going. I think maybe I'll feel a little differently when it's starting to look more like a bag, because like I said, at the moment it does just look like a hairnet. I'll obviously keep you posted on the progress, and yeah, we'll see how I get on with it. Now, you see, I'm saying that I'm not enjoying it, but I can't stop knitting on it. Still going, still knitting on it, knitting on my hairnet. I'm going to put it down now. Oh, and by the way, this is a set of my Higher Sharps interchangeable needles, and they are in the 3.25mm size. Kind of the personification of how all over the place my week has been is that a lot of these new projects don't actually have project bags to live in at the moment. They're all just kind of hanging out on my bedside table in a big pile, or just by my bed or wherever I've been working on them, and they don't have anywhere to live yet because I haven't reorganized all of my project bags, and that's just really frustrating. I need more project bags, but that's a completely different story. I have one more work in progress to share with you this week, and it's something that I am really excited about, and it is my featherweight cardigan. Oh my goodness. I didn't cast this on until I had finished casting off my Void Shawl. This was my treat to myself after I finished the Void, and I love it. Oh my goodness. So this is the featherweight cardigan, as everybody knows, by Hannah Fettick. It's a beautiful lightweight cardigan that I have been itching to make for such a long time. And I cast this on for Sue of the Legacy Knits podcast, but this knit along is specifically for her Periscope, which is Knit 24, which is basically a fingering weight sweater along, I think. Or cardigan sweater, but it has to be fingering weight, and it has to be finished by September, so that gives me a lot of time. And this is literally kind of 2 evenings worth of knitting, and I've already gone this far, and I think that's pretty impressive. I'm pretty happy with that for just kind of 2 evenings. And when I say evenings, I'm talking about probably from about 8:30 till about 10:30, where I'm in bed, usually with Rolly, watching back episodes of John Oliver programmes and knitting on this. So it's not a huge amount of work, and it's already grown quite quickly. The yarn that I am using is by the incredibly talented Kristen of Vool and Vine Yarns. This is her Gashly Crumb colourway. There it is in the cake. Isn't it just the best thing that you've ever seen. This is her Volca base, which is basically MCN, merino cashmere nylon. It's the same base that I used for my Outlander shawl, so I have worked with this base of hers previously, and I'm just obsessed. This yarn was a special treat to myself. I am so happy that I'm using it for this particular cardigan because I know that I'm just going to wear it to death. Look at how pretty it is. Just every time I'm knitting on it and you get these little pops of kind of goldy green and then occasionally little tiny speckles of navy blue in there as well, it just makes my heart skip a beat. You're so clever, Kristen, so clever. And I'm really, really happy with it, like I said. Last week I was kind of talking about my gauge swatch that I did, and I don't usually do gauge swatches, but I've decided to do them a lot more for garments because I want to make sure that if I'm using a beautiful yarn that I want to make sure is going to be in a garment that I'm going to wear all the time, that I do the gauge swatch just so that I can know that by the time I finish the garment it's going to fit beautifully and it's going to really work. Because how gutting is that when you've spent so many hours working on something and you've spent so much money on the yarn and all of the time and the love and the passion that you've put into it, and then it doesnit fit. Is just the worst feeling in the world. So I did re-swatch and I ended up going down 2 needle sizes from a 4mm to a 3.5mm, which is a US 4 needle, I believe, I hope. And it came up perfect, absolutely perfect, and I was really happy, and I cast it on and I'm in love. I can't say enough good things about Kristen's yarn. I have used it previously, so I do know how it works, how it washes, how it blocks, and every aspect of the knitting process with her yarn is just glorious. And to have another kind of beautiful object made out of her yarn is just making me really excited. So yeah, Gashly Crumb, so beautiful and squishy and gorgeous. Yeah, this is addictive. All I want to do at the moment is pick this up and work on it, because the bit where I am, which is just when you're kind of starting before you divide for the sleeves and everything, it's so intuitive. Literally, you do the rows a couple of times and you know them, and then you just keep on increasing until you have the right amount of stitches. So it's very, very mindless right now and really enjoyable. Favourite needles, favourite yarn, favourite everything. This is very quickly becoming my very favourite project. Isn't it pretty? Yay! And that is everything that's on my needles this week. All over the place, completely all over the place. Little bits on this and bits on that, and it's been fun though. I've enjoyed it, and it has helped me get through those long evenings without Emrys being at home. All of them have been really nice to work on when Rolly's around because they're not particularly huge, not a huge amount of yarn. Although I must say he is particularly enamoured with my Voodalong yarn, with Kristen's yarn. I don't know what it is about it, but he's not interested in the cake. He just likes the single strand that goes from my knitting to the cake, and he likes to try and like lick it, and I love him, but he is not licking that yarn. He tries very hard though, he really wants to. Let's move on to sew what? So like I said, not as much sewing has been done this week as I wanted because I feel I haven't been in that right frame of mind to really sit down and focus on a sewing project for a long period of time, which is what I like to do. I like to have at least a day or half a day to kind of really work on a project and give it my full attention when it comes to sewing. And I just haven't really had that large of a stretch of time available to do that. However, the big thing that I worked on this week was the makeover of my sewing room, which I posted a little video about this week. In case you haven't watched it, I decided that my organisation in my sewing room was particularly terrible and needed a revamp. So Emrys and I had a trip to IKEA, and I then had the amazingly enjoyable experience of rearranging all of my beautiful fabric stash. I also decided to revamp a little bit of my yarn stash as well, so everything is so well organised and everything has its own place and it's all so happy, which has given me the perfect environment to be able to work on projects, which makes me really, really happy. Obviously, I will include a little link to the video in the show notes in case you haven't watched it and fancy having a look, because I always love seeing how people have their beautiful things laid out in their stash, so you may enjoy that. But since doing that, I have had my creative sewing juices flowing, and I'm really excited to be able to spend more time in that room. So what I did end up doing this week is the start of a new sewing project. I cut out all of my fabric pieces. They are here, and they're going to completely blow out the camera because they are bright white. And these are for a Mimi blouse, which is one of the patterns from this amazing book. Let me just grab the picture. This blouse. So this is the Mimi blouse. I have talked about it on here before, and I am using this really cute eyelet cotton to make this blouse. This is kind of a mock-up version because I am intending to use the Mimi blouse pattern for my next Netflix and Sew project, which is a polka dot blouse inspired by Zoe Kazan in the film What If?, which I love, and if you haven't watched it, you really, really should. I love the blouse anyway, so I knew that I would want more than one. And because the fabric that I got for the Mimi blouse, the polka dot fabric, is very special, I wanted to make sure that I was kind of doing everything right and cutting the right size and everything before I cut into that fabric. So I had this, like I said, this eyelet cotton, which I knew I wanted to make a Mimi blouse or some kind of blouse with it anyway, so I decided to get that all cut out this week, which I did. So I have my lovely pile of fabric pieces which are all ready to go, which is kind of how I like to work with sewing projects, because if I know that I'm going to have a whole day of just for one project, you have to fit in, you know, pattern cutting as well as sewing and all of that type of thing. But if you've already cut all of your pattern pieces out, it does mean that you can just kind of, for like half an hour at a time, just sit down and start construction, because you have everything you need all in one place. Hopefully I shall get this finished soon, because this will just be the perfect thing to wear when it gets sunny out and I just want something light and pretty, and it will go with so many things. It'll be a really nice staple, which again is what I'm aiming for with the Wardrobe Architect project, which again, I don't have an update for you this week. It's not for lack of doing on my part. I have been working on the Wardrobe Architect, but the stage that I'm at now is all about colours and patterns. And for that, I'm creating some kind of colour palettes and that type of thing. And it's taken me a little while to get to grips with some software in order to create kind of specific colour palettes that I want to share with you here. But it's all happening. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I will have a nice big update all about the Wardrobe Architect for you. But I'm not going to make any promises, because I don't want to put additional pressure, unnecessary pressure on myself. But in case you're interested in the Wardrobe Architect, or you don't know what I'm talking about, it is creating a capsule wardrobe that is reflective of your own personal style. And if you head over to my Ravelry group, I have a thread that's all about the Wardrobe Architect, and you can follow through to the original blog posts that kind of inspired and that I'm following through on this whole process. And there are lots of other people who are getting involved as well, so yeah, head over to the Ravelry group and enjoy. So in terms of crafty, sewing-y goodness and all of that type of thing, that's all of the segments that I'm going to be covering in terms of those bits and pieces this week. I am now going to be moving on to General Waffle, which this week is going to be about one topic, and that is love. And like I kind of put the little disclaimer in at the beginning of the episode, this is going to be slightly more serious than is general on my podcast, but it's something that I just had to say. So I hope that you'll appreciate that. And in order to do this and to be able to get all of this out, I needed a little bit of support. So I decided to have a little co-host with me. Say hi, hello baby. So if I'm going to be talking about love, I really have to have the little chap who I love more than almost anybody else on the planet, and that is Rolly the pug. So Rolly's here, offering me a little bit of moral support. So yeah, I wanted to talk about love. What happened this week with people being victimised, people being killed, people's lives being destroyed because of who they choose to love, is just horrific. To be honest, there are no words to express just how horrendous that is. There are just no words. The thing that the last week has taught me more than anything is that even though there are these horrendous acts out there, acts that are entirely fueled by lack of understanding, by hatred, by fear, by anger, the way that we should respond and the way that people are responding is in love, is showing love for our fellow human being, for showing love for each other, for loving what we do each day, and not judging someone just because of who they decide to love. We have, in this community, in the podcasting community, such an incredible love-filled place. This is a safe place. This is a place where we can come and talk about the things that we love, that we enjoy spending time doing. Here is a place where we can share those things and we know that we won't be judged, that we are safe. And the sad fact of the matter is not everybody has that. The one thing that I'd like you to take away from this podcast this week is love what you do. And do what you love unashamedly. I love making this podcast and I love spending time with you. Each and every one of you shows me how incredible the human race is, how amazing a community of people can be. And if there's anything that we can do in this life, is it's just put more of that out there, put more of this joy and these good vibes or this love and this positivity out into the world, because that's what makes the world a better place. Being the type of people that in the wake of acts of tragedy and, let's be honest, just complete mindless ignorance, respond by saying, I'm not going to let someone tell me who I can love. I'm not going to let someone tell me how to live my life just because they're, let's say it, they're stupid. There are so many sides to each one of us. There are so many things in our lives that we love, and sometimes society creates a world in which we're ashamed and we're afraid to speak out about our individuality and what makes us us. I would say, don't be afraid of fear. Embrace your fear and let it drive you to be a better person, to be a more creative person, to really do those things that you're passionate about. Go out and do that thing that you love and do it unashamedly. That's the type of world that I want to live in. I'm lucky enough to have been raised in a family where my parents, you know, it's Father's Day, my dad, but also my mum, showed me nothing but unconditional love. And I know that whoever I brought home to them as a partner in life, they would have accepted that person and they would have loved them in exactly the same way that they love Emrys and they love him like a son. And they would have done that to no matter who came through that door as my chosen partner in life. And that is the type of world that I want to bring up my own children in one day. Spread that around the world, because that's what we need. Thank you all for listening to this slightly all over the place, rambly podcast this week. I feel it reflects really, really appropriately how I have felt this last week, how I feel in this moment. As always, I hope you have an amazing week. I hope it's filled with wonderful crafty things and sewing and knitting and all of that fabulous stuff, but spread a little bit of love out into the world. Spend some time doing what you love with the people that you love. And I decided to close the episode with something a little bit different this week, which is me basically putting my money where my mouth is and not being afraid of fear and embracing the things that I love. I'm going to close up with a little bit of singing from myself, one of the things that I love most in the world, but it's pretty unnerving putting it out there into the podcasting world, so be kind. I hope you enjoy it. Obviously, if you don't, just skip it. But for now, from me and from this little nugget, we hope you have an incredible week, and we'll see you again soon. Bye! It's not simple to say that most days I don't recognize me, that these shoes and this apron, that place and its patrons have taken more than I gave them. It's not easy to know I'm not anything like I used to be, although it's true I was never attention's sweet center. I still remember that girl. She's imperfect, but she tries. She is good, but she lies. She is hard on herself. She is broken and won't ask for help. She is messy, but she's kind. She is lonely most of the time. She is all of this mixed up and baked in a beautiful pie. She is gone, but she used to be mine. It's not what I asked for. Sometimes life just slips in through a back door and carves out a person and makes you believe it's all true. And now I've got you, and you're not what I asked for. If I'm honest, I know I would give it all back for a chance to start over and rewrite an ending or two. For the girl that I knew who'll be reckless just enough, who'll get hurt, but who learns how to toughen up when she's bruised and gets used by a man who can't love. And then she'll get stuck and be scared of the life that's inside her, growing stronger each day till it finally reminds her to fight just a little to bring back the fire in her eyes that's been gone, but it used to be mine. It used to be mine. She is messy, but she's kind. She is lonely most of the time. She is all of this mixed up and baked in a beautiful pie. She is gone, but she used to be mine. I love you.